Talk to anyone that's ever been involved in commissioning, and they will always tell you the importance of early commissioning involvement in projects. There's an entire phase of projects right at the beginning called commissioning engineering that often gets overlooked and never gets the proper attention for early planning and risk mitigation of commissioning activities on projects. Planning for commissioning needs to take place at the same time that engineering planning and construction planning are taking place so that a holistic approach to projects is planned right from the beginning, including commissioning. I wrote an article on the importance of early commissioning planning, and I used Notebook LM to summarize the article. Have a listen.
You're listening to the Industrial Commissioning Association podcast, where we discuss best practices for industrial plant process and energy system commissioning. Get ready to say no to outdated industry norms and say yes to improved project performance. Here's your host, Paul Turner.
Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be talking about early commissioning planning in projects. Kind of like, before you take your new car home, you always do a test drive first. Well, commissioning is kind of like the test drive for a big project to make sure everything works. And we've got a great document here called Incorporate Commissioning into Your Early Project Planning. And what's interesting is that there's really no one-size-fits-all approach. Like how early should you plan this stuff? There aren't really any hard and fast rules. So have you ever been in a situation where, you're working on a project and something just goes wrong at the very end, like maybe a website launch or, you build this great new building and the plumbing doesn't work?
Oh, yeah. I've seen that happen so many times. And I'll tell you, it almost always goes back to a lack of planning early on.
And that's where commissioning comes in.
Yeah.
This document really dives into the why behind starting early. And it's not about just, checking boxes or creating more paperwork. It's about setting the stage for a successful project.
Yeah, it's really about changing how we think about projects. It's more about focusing on the outcome. Really envisioning that perfect system instead of just worrying about the little tasks. Think about it like building a house. You wouldn't wait until the walls are up to figure out where the plumbing or electrical wiring goes, right? You plan all that stuff out ahead of time. Yeah. That's what early commissioning planning is all about. You're building those testing and verification steps right into the project from the very beginning.
I like that analogy. But sometimes early planning just sounds like more meetings and more paperwork. And that's one of the myths that this document tackles head on, right?
Yeah, it does. People don't realize that this upfront planning can actually save you so much time and stress later on, not to mention all the money you can save. It's really an investment. I remember one project I worked on is a huge manufacturing facility, and the control systems integration was a total nightmare. Nobody had thought about doing robust testing early on, and it ended up costing weeks of delays and a ton of money in reworks. It just showed how neglecting that early commissioning can really come back to bite you.
Ouch, that's a painful lesson to learn.
Yeah.
So how can we avoid those kinds of pitfalls? The document mentions a couple of planning documents that seem pretty important.
Yeah, there's the Project Commissioning Plan, or PCP, and then there's the Commissioning Execution Plan, or CEP. And the Industrial Commissioning Association, or ICO, has done a great job standardizing these documents. They give you a really solid framework to follow.
All right, so break it down for us. What are these documents all about, and how do they work together?
Well, the PCP is like your what document. It's like your strategic blueprint for the whole project. You want to develop this early on, even during the initial concept phase, or what we call the F stage, which stands for front-end engineering design. It's a really critical step, especially for big projects. You're basically answering the big questions like, what exactly are we building? How do we want it to perform? And what does success look like? It's all about setting that solid foundation for the commissioning process later on.
Okay, so the PCP sets the stage, and then the CEP comes in with all the details, right?
Yeah, you got it. The CEP is your how document. It's your tactical playbook for all the testing procedures.
Correct.
This comes into play a little later in the design phase when you've got more specific details. It wouldn't make sense to plan every test in detail when you're still figuring out the basic design, right?
Right, that makes sense. So you've got the PCP setting the strategic direction,
Yeah.
and the CEP providing the tactical roadmap. Having both of those documents would definitely give everyone involved a much clearer picture of what needs to happen.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important that the ICA has standardized these plans. It helps eliminate the guesswork and make sure everyone is on the same page no matter how big or complex the project is.
Now, the source makes a really strong case for having someone with experience on board for this whole process. It's not just about filling out forms. It's about having that deep knowledge. Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Having a seasoned commissioning expert can be incredibly valuable. They've been there, done that, seen it all. They bring all that knowledge and all those lessons learned from past projects. And probably most importantly, they have that intuition to spot potential problems that others might miss. It's like having a guide when you're exploring a new territory. They know the shortcuts, the pitfalls to avoid, and can keep you on the right path.
I like that analogy. They can be that voice of reason, helping you make those tough decisions and making sure you're asking the right questions. But I'm also curious, wouldn't bringing in an expert early on add to the project costs? Isn't that something that some teams might be concerned about?
That's a good point, and it's a question I get asked all the time. But you have to think of it as an investment, not an expense. Yes, there's an initial cost. But a seasoned expert can actually save you a lot of money in the long run. They can help you avoid costly mistakes, delays, and those dreaded rework scenarios.
That makes sense. It's like that old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah,
You spend a little up front to avoid much bigger headaches later on.
exactly. And a skilled commissioning expert can help you identify and quantify those potential savings early on. They can make a really strong case for why they're worth the investment. They bring a unique perspective. They can analyze the risks and propose strategies to mitigate them. And that can save you a ton of money in the long run.
So it's not just about preventing disasters, it's about optimizing the entire process for efficiency and cost effectiveness.
Absolutely. And that's where their experience is so valuable. They can analyze your specific project, identify potential problem areas, and propose solutions that fit within your budget and timeline. It's a collaborative approach that leads to better results and a more successful project.
This is really painting a compelling picture of the value that an expert brings. It's not just about technical knowledge. It's about strategic thinking, risk management, and understanding how all the pieces fit together.
You got it. And that's something we'll explore even further as we dive deeper into the world of early commissioning planning.
We've been talking about having that experienced guide by your side, but even with the best expert, this whole early commissioning process can seem kind of overwhelming, right? Especially when you're already juggling a million other things on the project.
Yeah, I totally get it. It can definitely feel daunting at first. But the good news is, the Industrial Commissioning Association, or ICA for short, they've really simplified things. Their global commissioning standard is like a roadmap. It guides you through all the essential steps for early planning.
Yeah.
You don't have to start from scratch. They've already got a proven framework that you can use.
So it's like they've taken all that collective wisdom and put it into an easy-to-follow guide.
Exactly. And they even provide templates for those planning documents we talked about, the PCP and the CEP. That way you don't have to worry about what to include or how to structure them.
Wow, that's a huge time saver.
Yeah.
Having those templates would definitely make things a lot less intimidating. Let's go back to the source document for a second. One thing that really stood out to me was this idea of shifting our focus from individual tasks to the bigger picture, the desired outcome. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a really important shift in mindset. It's not just about checking off boxes. It's about keeping your eye on the prize, that ultimate vision of what you're trying to achieve. And in commissioning that vision is a high-quality, reliable system that's going to last.
Right. So when you have that clear purpose in mind,
Yeah.
it makes all those individual tasks more meaningful.
Right. Absolutely. The source document uses this great analogy. It says that a lot of projects get so caught up in the weeds, all the contracts, the design specs, the construction timelines, that they lose sight of the forest for the trees. That ultimate goal of delivering a system that's going to operate smoothly for years to come.
It's so easy to get bogged down in all those day-to-day tasks and lose track of that bigger picture. This document is a good reminder to step back and ask, what are we really trying to accomplish here?
And by integrating commissioning right from the start, you're basically weaving testability, operability, and maintainability into the project from day one.
So it's not just about testing the system at the end. It's about designing it with testability in mind from the very beginning.
Exactly. And this approach is gaining a lot of traction. The source document even mentions a post from the UK National Infrastructure Commission. They're advocating for better planning, not just for design and construction, but for commissioning as well.
Wow, so this shift towards early commissioning planning is happening on a national level. That's a pretty clear sign that the industry is recognizing its value.
It definitely is. It shows that we're moving away from that old siloed approach to project planning, where commissioning was often treated as an afterthought. Now it's being integrated into those early stages right alongside design and construction, which leads to a much more collaborative process and ultimately better results.
It's like we're taking the whole project planning process to a whole new level.
Exactly. And the best part is the ICA has made this transition really straightforward. They've demystified the process and made it accessible to projects of all sizes.
So for those who are ready to embrace this early bird approach, what are the first steps they can take? The source document hinted at a few practical starting points.
Well, it really boils down to 3 key actions. First, grab a copy of the ICA Global Commissioning Standard. Second, download those PCP and CP templates we talked about. And third, engage a knowledgeable commissioning expert to guide you through the process.
Those are some really tangible, actionable steps that any project team can take. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the human side of all this. It's not just about documents and processes, right? It's about people.
Oh, absolutely. Commissioning is all about collaboration. It relies on effective communication trust and a shared understanding of goals among everyone involved. And that's something you need to foster from the very beginning.
Right. So early stakeholder involvement is key to making sure everyone is on the same page and the process runs smoothly.
Exactly. When you engage stakeholders early on, you can tap into their expertise, gather valuable insights, and address any concerns they might have right from the start. It's about building consensus and creating a sense of ownership throughout the project.
And I bet that early stakeholder involvement can also help mitigate potential risks.
Absolutely. By involving stakeholders early, you can identify potential risks and come up with strategies to address them. This not only reduces the chances of those risks actually happening, but it also makes the team better equipped to handle them if they do arise.
So it's not just about identifying the risks, it's about having a plan in place to deal with them. That sense of preparedness can be really valuable, especially in high-pressure project environments.
It definitely can. When stakeholders are involved from the outset, they feel more invested in the project's success, which leads to greater commitment and a much smoother commissioning process.
This is all tying back to that outcome-focused mindset we talked about earlier. It's about creating a shared vision and working together to achieve it.
You got it. Commissioning is a team sport. And when you have a strong team all working towards the same goal, you're setting yourself up for success.
This has been a really insightful conversation. We've covered so much ground, from the importance of outcome-focused planning to the value of stakeholder involvement. But before we move on, let's talk about something that's often overlooked in these discussions about early planning, and that's risk management. I imagine that identifying and mitigating potential risks early on is a critical part of this whole process.
You're absolutely right. Risk management is a crucial part of early commissioning planning. And it's not just about identifying potential problems, it's about proactively developing strategies to deal with them.
So it's about turning those what-ifs into we've got this moments.
Exactly. It's about shifting from a reactive to a proactive approach. And that's where a seasoned commissioning expert can really make a difference. They have a lot of experience in identifying potential risks that others might miss.
It's like having an extra set of eyes. Someone with that expert perspective who can scan the horizon for potential problems and help you navigate them.
Exactly. They can help you assess the likelihood and impact of those risks, prioritize them based on their severity, and develop effective strategies to mitigate them. It's all about having a plan in place so you're not caught off guard when those unexpected challenges come up.
That's so important. Because let's face it, no project is perfect. There are always going to be risks. It's how you anticipate and manage them that determines whether your project succeeds or fails.
Absolutely. By integrating risk management into your early commissioning planning, you're basically building resilience into your project from the ground up. You're creating a culture where risks are seen as opportunities to learn and improve.
That's a great way to look at it. It's not about eliminating risks altogether. It's about being prepared to handle them effectively.
Exactly. This proactive approach to risk management not only helps you avoid potential problems, but it also increases your chances of success overall.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. We've covered so much ground, from the fundamentals of early commissioning planning to the importance of stakeholder involvement and risk management.
It's been a great discussion. And I think it's clear that early commissioning planning is not just about checking boxes. It's about setting the stage for a successful project from day one.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive and strategic, and recognizing that commissioning is an integral part of the entire project lifecycle.
And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, let's talk about something that's really generating a lot of buzz these days. Virtual commissioning.
Ooh, I've heard a little bit about this. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Well, it's not quite teleportation or time travel, but it's definitely a game changer for the world of commissioning. Imagine being able to test and fine-tune your systems in a virtual environment long before they're actually built. That's the power of virtual
It
commissioning.
sounds amazing. But how does it actually work?
It involves creating what we call a digital twin. It's like a virtual replica of your system. And you use special software tools to create it. This allows you to simulate how the system will operate, test different scenarios, and identify potential problems before they happen in the real world.
So it's like a dress rehearsal for your system.
Exactly. And the benefits are huge. Virtual commissioning lets you identify and fix design flaws, optimize the control logic, and fine-tune the system's performance, all in a safe and controlled environment.
That sounds like a dream come true for anyone involved in commissioning.
It is. And being able to foresee and address issues early on saves you a ton of time and money. Not to mention, it reduces risk and makes the whole commissioning process much smoother.
This is really painting a futuristic picture of commissioning. It's like we're entering a new era where technology is allowing us to achieve levels of precision and efficiency that we never thought possible.
Absolutely. And integrating virtual commissioning into early planning is just one example of how the industry is constantly evolving.
It's really exciting to see these advancements happening. But as we explore this new technology, it's important to remember the human element. We can't forget about the expertise and judgment that are so crucial for interpreting those virtual results and making good decisions.
You're absolutely right. Technology is a powerful tool, but at the end of the day, it's the people who drive commissioning success. And that's something we'll talk more about as we continue our deep dive.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. We've gone from the basics of early commissioning planning to the cutting-edge world of virtual commissioning. But as we wrap up this part of our discussion, let's address a question that I'm sure is on a lot of our listeners' minds. How does all of this translate into real-world benefits?
That's a great question. And the answer is pretty simple. Early commissioning planning, when done right, leads to projects that are delivered on time within budget and meet or exceed expectations. It's all about minimizing those costly surprises, reducing the risk of delays, and making sure the transition from construction to operation goes as smoothly as possible.
So it's about making that often dreaded commissioning phase predictable and manageable.
Exactly. And the benefits go beyond just the immediate project timeline. Early commissioning planning helps ensure that you end up with a high-quality, reliable system, one that will operate efficiently and effectively for years to come. It's an investment in the long-term sustainability and success of your project.
That's a great takeaway. It's not just about getting the project done. It's about setting it up for long-term success. And I think that's a perfect place to end this part of our deep dive. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of commissioning. We've been talking about early planning and how it's not just about testing, but about laying the groundwork for a successful project.
Yeah, and one thing that's really stuck with me is this idea of shifting our focus from individual tasks to the desired outcome.
Right, it's like the saying, begin with the end in mind. When you have that clear vision of what you're trying to achieve, it guides every decision you make along the way.
Exactly. And in commissioning that desired outcome is a system that's not just functional, but one that works flawlessly, is reliable, and stands the test of time.
It's about building something that lasts, something that will continue to deliver value long after the project is finished.
And that's where early commissioning planning comes in. By building in testability, operability, and maintainability from the very beginning, you're setting yourself up for a smoother, more efficient path to that outcome.
It's like building a house. If you cut corners on the foundation, the whole structure is compromised. But if you invest in a strong foundation, you create a house that will last for generations.
Exactly. And the great thing is we have these amazing tools and resources to help us build that foundation for commissioning success. The ICA Global Commissioning Standard, the PCP and CEP templates, and of course the guidance of a seasoned commissioning expert. It's all there to help project teams get it right from the start.
It's like having a complete toolkit, a roadmap to guide you through this complex world of commissioning. And it's exciting to see this shift towards early planning gaining momentum. We talk about the UK National Infrastructure Commission and their push to include commissioning in those early planning stages.
Yeah, it really shows that people are recognizing the importance of commissioning. It's not an afterthought anymore. It's a key driver of project success. And by integrating it early on alongside design and construction, we create a more holistic and collaborative approach that benefits everyone.
It's about breaking down those silos and realizing that commissioning is a crucial part of the entire project lifecycle. But let's talk about something that often gets overlooked, the human element of commissioning. What are some of the things we need to consider when it comes to managing the people involved in this process?
That's a really important aspect. Commissioning is all about people. It's about collaboration, communication, and building trust among all the stakeholders. It's about making sure everyone understands the goals, the expectations, and their roles.
So it's not just about managing systems and processes, it's about managing relationships and expectations too.
Exactly, and you need to address this human element right from the start. Early stakeholder engagement is crucial. It's about getting everyone involved, the owners, the designers, the contractors, the operators, and creating a shared vision for the commissioning journey.
I can see how getting everyone on the same page early on would make the process much smoother. But let's talk about one specific aspect of that human element, managing expectations. Any tips on how to do that effectively?
Well, managing expectations starts with clear, open, and honest communication. It's about setting realistic goals, being upfront about potential challenges, and establishing a transparent process for tracking progress and addressing concerns. You want to make sure everyone understands their roles and responsibilities, and that they feel comfortable speaking up and sharing their perspectives.
So it's about creating a safe space for open dialogue, where everyone feels heard and respected. But let's not forget about the technical side of things. We talked about those incredible advancements in technology, especially in the area of virtual commissioning. How is this technology shaping the future of commissioning? And what are some of the challenges and opportunities that come with it?
Virtual commissioning is definitely a game changer. Being able to test and fine-tune systems virtually before they're even built is transforming how we approach commissioning. It lets us identify and fix design flaws, optimize the control logic, and ensure seamless integration, all in a safe and cost-effective way. It's like having a digital dress rehearsal, where you can work out all the kinks before the real show begins.
It sounds almost too good to be true. But I imagine there are some challenges that come with using this new technology.
Well, one of the biggest challenges is making sure that the virtual model accurately reflects the real-world system. You need to have accurate data, robust modeling tools, and a deep understanding of how the system works. And of course, we can't forget about the human element. Technology can provide us with amazing insights. But it's ultimately the commissioning professionals who interpret those results, make decisions, and ensure that the virtual world translates smoothly into the real world.
Right. It's a good reminder that technology is a tool, but it's the people who drive commissioning success. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from the why of early commissioning planning to the how of putting it into practice. What's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing to remember is this. Early commissioning planning is not about checking boxes or creating more paperwork. It's about setting your project up for success from the very beginning. It's about shifting from a reactive to a proactive mindset, from focusing on tasks to focusing on outcomes. It's about collaboration, communication, and continuous improvement. And it's about recognizing that commissioning is not just a phase, it's a journey. And when you approach that journey with the right tools and the right mindset, you can deliver projects that are on time, within budget, and exceed expectations.
That's a great message. It's about being proactive and strategic and realizing that commissioning is an integral part of the entire project lifecycle. As we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. We've talked about envisioning the desired outcome, but what happens when those outcomes change during the project? How do we adapt our commissioning plan to those shifting goals?
That's a great question. And it highlights the importance of being flexible and adaptable in commissioning. No project goes exactly according to plan. There will always be unexpected challenges, new requirements, and new information that comes up along the way. The key is to have a commissioning plan that's structured and provides guidance, but is also flexible enough to handle those inevitable changes. You need a process for evaluating those changes, assessing their impact, and adjusting the plan as needed. And you need to create a culture of open communication and collaboration, where everyone feels comfortable raising concerns, sharing ideas, and working together to find the best way forward.
That's great advice. It's about being agile and understanding that commissioning is a dynamic process. It's a journey that requires us to adapt and evolve as we go. For those who want to learn more about commissioning, I highly recommend checking out the resources mentioned in the source document. The Industrial Commissioning Association has a wealth of information and practical guidance to help you navigate this complex but rewarding field.
I agree. The ICA is an excellent resource for anyone who wants to learn more about commissioning. Their website is full of valuable information, including industry standards, best practices, and a community of commissioning professionals who are always happy to share their knowledge.
So until next time, remember to be proactive, focus on outcomes, foster a culture of collaboration and communication, and never stop learning about the fascinating world of commissioning. Happy commissioning, everyone.
Thanks for listening. To become a member of the Industrial Commissioning Association, visit icxa.net. Members get access to commissioning standards, procurement specifications, commissioning training and certification, plus many more specialized resources to help you with commissioning of your industrial plant process and energy systems. Visit icxa.net for more information.